There is in our times, maybe not our times, but within the past 150 years or so, a story, a testimony surrounding the person of Pope Leo XIII. That's Leo XIII. And allegedly, he had a vision after Mass. There's different accounts of this vision. I'm going to go through them today. Of God and Satan having a dialogue, a debate, and a wager. This comes from Father Pescianino. This is what allegedly Pope Leo XIII saw a little after 1890. Satan was bragging that he had already devastated the church on a large scale. In fact, these were tumultuous times for Italy, for many nations in Europe, and a bit around the world. The Freemasons ruled, and government hadn't become docile instruments. With the audacity of a boaster, Satan put a challenge to God. Quote, "And if you gave me a little more freedom, you could see what I would do for your church." What would you do? Satan said, "I would destroy it." God answered, "Oh, that would be something else. How long would it take you?" Satan answered, 50 or 60 years. God said, "Have more freedom then, and the time you need. Then we'll see what happens." End quote. Now, this account was recorded around 1947, and allegedly it happened a little bit after 1890. So, we're talking about a 50-year discrepancy here. A little bit of a problem. Also, it seems to be based on something that had been written previously by Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, who died in 1824, so quite a bit before this alleged episode. And I'll read here from her detached account of the descent into hell. This is her account of Christ descending into hell after he died on the cross to free the Old Testament saints from the limbo of the fathers, from Abraham's bosom, and bring them to heaven. She records this, which is quite stunning. God himself had decreed this, and I was likewise told, if I remember correctly, that he, Satan, will be unchained for a time, 50 or 60 years, before the year of Christ 2000. The dates of many other events were pointed out to me, which I do not now remember, but a certain number of demons are to be let loose much earlier than Lucifer, in order to tempt men and to serve as instruments of divine vengeance. She says 50 to 60 years before the year 2000. Again, she's writing in the early 1800s. So this, if it's 50 or 60 years, this will be the 1940s and the 1950s. And if you compare it to the account allegedly seen by Pope Leo XIII, it would place it 50 to 60 years after Leo XIII saw it. So we're in the same time frame. One's just going 50-60 backwards, one's going 50-60 frontwards. I found an earlier account that had been written around 1931 by Monsignor Carl Vogel. And he gives this account, which is different but similar. Here it is. A rather peculiar circumstance induced Pope Leo XIII to compose this powerful prayer. What's he talking about? This is the St. Michael prayer. It's the very powerful prayer written by Leo XIII, and he asked people to say this prayer to bind Satan's power and work in the world. And it goes like this. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Now, Leo XIII wrote that. Why did he write that? Why would he write this powerful prayer against Satan and all of his angels prowling the world, and then ask lay people and priests to pray it? In fact, in 1886, this was added to the prayers after Low Mass. So this becomes an obligatory popular prayer against Satan and the demons. Monsignor Vogel says the reason for him adding this in 1886 was after celebrating Mass one day, the Pope was in the conference with the cardinals. Suddenly he sank to the floor. Several doctors were summoned, and one found no sign of a pulse. The very life seemed to have ebbed away from the fragile and aging body. Suddenly he recovered and said, "What a horrible vision I have been shown." He saw the ages to come, the seductive powers and ravings of the devils against the church in every land. But St. Michael, the archangel, appeared in the moment of greatest distress and cast Satan and his cohorts back into the abyss of hell. Such was the occasion that caused Pope Leo XIII to prescribe this prayer for the universal church. 1886. Okay, so Vogel wrote that in 1931. But there's actually, I found, an even earlier account. And this goes back to Leo XIII's personal secretary, who was named Monsignor Rinaldo Angeli. Now, Monsignor Angeli died in 1914. Okay, so we're kind of going back by 20 years at a time here and getting closer and closer to the source. Now, Monsignor Angeli was the actual friend and secretary of Pope Leo XIII, so he would actually know most likely what really happened. We do know it's a historical fact that in 1896, Leo XIII, in a distressful way, composed this prayer against Satan and the demons and asked the whole church to pray it after every low mass. Why? Here's Monsignor Angeli, who prowl about the world. That's from the prayer. Was a historical explanation which has been shared numerous times by the Holy Father's most faithful secretary, who was very close to him throughout his pontificate, Monsignor Rinaldo Angeli. Now, this is actually being told by another cardinal who knew them both. Okay, Pope Leo XIII truly had a vision of demonic spirits who were gathering on the eternal city, Rome. From that experience, which he shared with the prelate, and certainly with others in confidentiality, comes the prayer which he wanted the whole church to recite, the St. Michael's prayer. This was the prayer which he recited. We heard this many times in the Vatican Basilica with a strong, powerful voice, which resonated in an unforgettable way in the universal silence beneath the vaults of this most important temple of Christianity. Not only that, but he wrote a special exorcism, which is found in the Rituale Romanum, with the title Exorcismus in Sanctanum et Angelos Apostaticos. The pontiff recommended to the bishops and the priests that these exorcisms be recited often in their dioceses and in their parishes by priests who had received the proper faculties from their ordinaries. However, to set a good example, he recited it himself frequently throughout the day. Another prelate, familiar with the Pope, used to tell us that even on his walks throughout the Vatican gardens, he would take a small book, worn out from much use, from his pocket and recite his exorcism with fervent piety and deep devotion. The small book is still preserved by a noble family in Rome, whom we know well. Okay, so these second accounts do not contradict the later accounts. They do say that he had some kind of vision of demons infesting the church, settling into the church. The latest account actually records this dialogue between God and Satan, requesting the 50, 60 years. That doesn't appear in the two oldest versions. So what can we conclude? Well, as I conclude in Infiltration, I don't think that we can trust the dialogue account, but certainly something happened where there was a time frame, a timeline. There was a way to prevent the evil. Satan is unchained. He is given more power. And it does seem to be a test, just like what we read in Job, of Satan saying, well, yeah, the Catholic Church loves you, God. You've been kind to it. It's been over 100 years since the French Revolution. Let's shake things up and see if people still love you, if people still follow you. And then what did we have? We had the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. We had World War II, little prosperity, and then we had the raging 1960s with a complete overturn of the social order. Pope Leo XIII, he composed the St. Michael prayer. And I would encourage you to pray the St. Michael prayer every single day. Our family prays the St. Michael prayer every single day. You should too. Demons try to get into our lives. They try to infect us. They try to infiltrate our homes. Christ is here to help us. Remember in the Old Testament, he told them, take the blood of the lamb and put it over your doorway to protect you from the angel of death. You don't have to go kill any animal and put blood on your house. The way we protect ourselves, prayer.